Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the Co-Star, the official newspaper of the Borough of Belmar, and the Asbury Park Press, and notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building. Take roll call. Councilwoman Donovan? Here. Councilwoman McKinney? Here. Mayor Buckafusco?
Here.
Councilman Rodinero? Here. Councilman Levis?
Here. Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our troops, their families, our first responders, and also tonight, let's include Michael Farber, who was a beloved resident of the BHA building. He passed away recently, and also Joe Sanzio, a longtime resident of Belmar. Thank you. Before we start the workshop, I'd just like to take a moment. I wasn't here last week, but I understand that the Belmar Fire Department, our Goodwill Company, and Hook and Ladder, they did a great job in fighting the fire on 13th Avenue. I saw pictures. It looked pretty intense to me, and obviously, you know, quick response, quick thinking, and help, I believe, from other fire departments really limited. I think the damage could have been horrendous, you know, buildings being close together. So I'd like to thank you guys all, and we'll keep it Okay. Any other comments? Let's move on to workshop. Do we want to start with the proclamations?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to change things around a little bit. Well, let's do the proclamations. First, we have the first one for Arbor Day.
Okay, Arbor Day 2025, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the Borough of Belmar do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the Borough of Belmar, and the mayor and council hereby urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Thank you. And next, Council President Rodinero.
Proclamation. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas we all have a responsibility as individuals, neighbors, community members, and citizens of the Borough of Belmar to help create healthy, nurturing, and safe experiences. And whereas healthy and safe childhoods help produce confident and successful adults. And whereas child abuse and neglect often occur when people find themselves in stressful situations without community resources and don't know how to cope. And whereas incidences of child abuse and neglect can be reduced by making sure all families have the support they need and deserve to raise their children in a healthy environment. And whereas court-appointed special advocates, CASA, is authorized by state statute and federal law to help the court and child welfare systems make best interest decisions on behalf of children removed from home because of abuse or neglect. And whereas CASA volunteer advocates in Belmar help to ensure that abused and neglected children who are placed in foster care and other out-of-home placements are safe and receive the services they need to achieve well-being. And whereas CASA advocates reduce the number of moves between placements, help shorten the overall time a child remains in placement, and serve as a consistent person in the child's life until that child achieves permanency in a safe home with a loving family. Now therefore, the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Belmar do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and urge all citizens to support the CASA network across New Jersey as it strengthens families and helps children learn, grow, and thrive.
Thank you. Let's move on to workshop. Any items for tonight's discussion? Seeing no hands, I guess we'll move on to petitions.
I have not received any petitions.
Okay, moving right along, approval of the minutes.
Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 25th meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Councilman Donovan?
Yes.
Councilman Kinney?
Yes.
Mayor Buckafesco?
Yes.
Councilman Rondonero?
Yes.
Councilman Levis?
Yes.
Okay, reports of council. Councilwoman Donovan.
So on April 26th, the Environmental Coalition will be hosting a cleanup at Silver Lake. Please consult the Facebook page for more information. I should also say that we have very good news coming out of the Environmental Commission, which is that we were notified by the Army Corps just this week that even though they did not receive new appropriations, they have put together enough funding to go forward with our project. So I want to say a very special thank you to Diane Fillo and Gary Henniger, who are here today. I can't see if anyone else is, but they did a tremendous amount of work on this project. They continue to do a tremendous amount of work on all of our projects, and the entire town really thanks you both, and all the members of the Environmental Coalition. There is Countdown to Seafood Festival. We are working on the Tourism Commission with the Belmar Chamber of Commerce to come up with ideas to spread some of that traffic around town to benefit the businesses. In other news, I invited Assemblywoman Margie Donlin to meet with us, along with representatives from Spring Lake, Avon, Bradley, and other neighboring towns. Councilwoman Kinney and Councilwoman Marie Rondonero were there. We're all in accord that we have, though we appreciate the good intentions behind the bill to provide clarity on public access, we are concerned that the vague way it's currently written would actually result in more incidents like we had last summer rather than fewer. So we are hoping to continue working with the Assemblywoman and our other representatives to get to some type of agreement. I met also with a group of residents, the Friends of Silver Lake. We went over all of our current outstanding grant opportunities and the general goals for the lake. We will be continuing to work with them and update them on that progress. And finally, I really want to again thank the Belmar Fire Department for their work, along with our neighboring fire departments. You guys do an incredible job. You are all volunteers. I think it's really important to reiterate that for the record. As we always say, you guys have all the training and responsibility of paid firemen, but none of the pay. So thank you very, very much.
Okay, Councilwoman Kinney.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would like to echo the sentiment of thanks to all the fire departments who helped us, especially Belmar Fire Department. You guys were first on the scene. It could have been a lot worse from what I understand, so thank you so much at the crack of dawn on Sunday morning for coming out and helping put out that fire. Okay, recreation, Easter egg hunt has been rescheduled from last Sunday to this, or rather last Saturday to this Saturday, 11 a.m. sharp between 4th and 5th Ave beaches. Sign-ups are happening now for summer basketball, kids running club, kids and adults tennis lessons. All the information is on the recreation website. Shade Tree Commission, yesterday the third graders from both St. Rose Grammar School and Belmar Elementary School planted trees in honor of our Belmar's Arbor Day celebration. So even though Arbor Day is this Friday, it was spring break for a lot of the kids, so they just did it this past week. And so they had a great time, great weather, and so that was another good event. The next Shade Tree Commission meeting will be in conjunction with the Environmental Commission. So you know, we always find many of our thoughts and ideas kind of work congruently, so we decided to do a joint meeting, and that's gonna be the next meeting, May 8th, and that's here at Borough Hall. The next EADA meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May 1st. Couple things, St. Louis Grammar School and the high school would like to announce their first ever musical theater camp. They are hosting this summer. Kids from K through 12, so 5 through 17 years old. There's going to be 2 sessions, June 23rd to the July 18th and July 21st to August 15th. You can also pay by week. All the information is going to be on the St. Rose Facebook pages, so look out for grammar school or high school Facebook pages for more information about musical theater camp. Sounds like it's going to be a really great program. All the kids start spring break tomorrow or Friday, rather Thursday or Friday, half day Thursday for Belmar Elementary. My kids were done today, so nice long spring breaks. Everybody was looking forward to it. Belmar Elementary has been participating in Ascending District Enrichment Program. Selected students were able to participate in woodshop, Jeopardy, academic challenges, and STEM challenges. So they went to different schools to learn how to participate in these. Belmar Elementary also did a penny wars between the grades, so everybody collected change, from what I understand. But they were able to raise $4,000 for Atlantic Farms, which is pretty cool. And then I have a couple good things happening around the skate park. So, skate park committee, we will also be at the Seafood Festival selling t-shirts, accepting donations. And then we have a special guest artist, Jill Hawthorne. She's going to be customizing blank skate decks, or if you'd like to bring your skateboard over, she can customize art on that. All donations are going to the skate park. I'm also happy to announce that Belmar Porch Fest this year is advertised that all proceeds from Porch Fest is also going to the skate park this year. So we are grateful to the Porch Fest folks and organizers for making us their donation this year, which is great. June 21st is National Go Skateboard Day. We are going to do a town-wide Dine to Donate, or as we like to call it, a Spin to Shred event. All businesses that wish to participate will donate a portion of their sales back to the skate park. We're going to create a list of businesses who want to participate, blast it out on social media so it'll drive traffic to those businesses, and all the money will go to benefit the skate park. If you'd like to participate, you can reach out to me at jkinney@belmar.com. And lastly, our next big fundraiser for the skate park is going to be in October 11th at RA, bands, giveaways, prizes, more information to come. So stay tuned. All right, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Montanaro.
Thank you, Mayor. The library has some great upcoming events for everyone to enjoy. The Poetry Power Hour Jam is this Thursday, featuring New Jersey spoken word artist James C. Ellerby and Don Krypton and 8 local poets. So that's at Taylor Pavilion at 6 p.m. It's free and open to all. Get your e-tickets by registering online at belmarlibrary.org. The next financial education series is Tuesday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. at the library, focusing on financial decisions for young adults. High school graduation is coming. Get your graduate ready now to navigate post-high school financial decisions. Also free and open, register online. While I am thinking about that, a reminder that we have until May 13th, if you have a senior that is looking for a scholarship, that's Belmar Lake Como, please go to the Belmar website. I just typed in Women's Club in the search and it came up with where you can get the application for it. Applications and all required documentations listed above, and then you'll see this sheet that comes up. Must be submitted to Belmar Women's Club, Johanna Roper Robinson, Education Chairperson, P.O. Box 95, Belmar, New Jersey. And that is by May 13th, 2025, and each scholarship amount is $1,500. So please, this is one of the most wonderful things that our community does for our community, and the Belmar Women's Club knocks it out of the park. So financial responsibility. Okay, I'm back. The 2025 Spring Beach Readers Book Fair is Saturday, April 26th, 12 to noon. 12 to 4 at Taylor Pavilion, and that has 40 different Jersey Shore authors. There's children, young adults, adult fiction, nonfiction. There's something for everyone. stock up on your Great Jersey Shore summer reading, free admission, and free parking. I also believe that the Chamber of Commerce is doing their Shop and Jam that day as well. Is that? Oh, okay. I believe that they're doing a Shop and Jam, so hopefully we'll find out more about that. Please look online. I think they're going to have musicians coming downtown. I want to say that that is also the 24th, or 26th, Saturday, April 26th. It was it's been advertised. Sorry, I'll get the more details, and we'll put back up on Belmar website as well, if that's okay. Also note that the library will be closed this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the Easter holiday weekend. And then Belmar Housing Authority had its meeting last Monday, where Johanna Roper Robinson was appointed as the newest commissioner on the board. This is following the vacancy for Mary Lynch's seat, who recently resigned after serving the board for many years. Congratulations, Johanna. There was a recent inspection of the units, which highlighted some issues of clutter and safety. There was some mice activity. The residents are to report anything that is going on in their units, especially mouse activity, or there's been some recent flaking of paint. It's very important that they put out a work order, which is a triplicate form that you can get directly from the superintendent. So we talked about that. In response to the graffiti on the building and the scaffolding, there have been new cameras installed on the west and east sides of the building. And the $676,000 grant from HUD is in its last stage. And the BHA is now able to access the program themselves. Bid specs are ready to go out on the facade repair when funding is received. In addition, we're hoping to use an additional emergency fund, repair funds from HUD. And then last but not least, May 3rd, we have the unveiling of our Piano Plaza. We invite everyone to come and enjoy musical performances by David Sanchez himself. He's coming from Hawaii to play for us and to dedicate the piano to his mother. And it's going to be a wonderful celebration. This is from 2 to 4, May 3rd. Please come and be there and celebrate with us. It's something that the borough is really proud to be a part of, and the Belmar Arts Center has done such a great job planning. Thanks.
Councilman Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. The shopping jam is April 26th from 1 to 4.
Thank you.
Just to clarify. I don't have much. I just want to thank the Friendly Center of Shillelagh, Belmar Police Department and the surrounding police departments, EMS, water rescue team, our chief of lifeguards, and DJs for another really successful plunge for autism. This year, the water was about 45 degrees and the air was a little bit colder with 6-foot seas. They still managed to raise $92,000. Wow. So big congratulations to them. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, I'm just going to use this opportunity to answer 2 questions that I had today. I ran into 2 people during my travels, 2 of my favorite commenters who come to the meetings. One, Claire Heiner. She had a question on the 3rd Avenue bathrooms. She wanted to know what was going on with that. So I told her I know I had a report from our engineer. I don't know if you have anything more than what he put here, but it seems like we have we had a pre-application meeting with the New Jersey DEP, and plans and applications for the CAFRA permit and the flood hazard permit are in the process of being prepared and maybe have been submitted already. I'm not sure about that. And so it's moving along.
And that 3rd Avenue bathroom had been added to that for request, so
You
that's
haven't
what.
heard anything more.
I
We had
just
a
wrote-
meeting place with Jim Morris, our borough engineer on this, so that's why I'm asking her if she has any last minute updates.
We actually, yeah, I had intended to bring this up in my report, but Councilwoman McKinney and I met with our business administrator for over 2.5 hours with the borough engineer to go over our streets and the plan on streets, roads, water and sewer. which was extensive, and we saw all the funding for it, the potential timelines, and it also included the plans for the new bathroom down on 16th, which are beautiful, really. And a lot of thought going into that process and about whether or not we have to shimmy the playground over or not. But that also would affect the Third Avenue bathroom and the potential to use.
So, once we put a permanent bathroom on 16th Avenue with some of our grant funding that is coming in this year, the hope is to be able to move the portable trailer bathroom back to Third Avenue. So it won't happen this summer, but fingers crossed, we will get it done by next summer.
If, big if.
If, okay, sorry.
That's what the permit.
Yes.
Okay.
In any event, we'll keep you updated. As soon as we hear something, we'll let you know.
Perfect, and I think that we're also still pursuing other options if we can't have it this summer, for something temporary as well, for those who have a hard time making it to Taylor Pavilion.
My other favorite person who usually asks questions is Neil Scheck. I don't see him here, but in case he's watching, he had an issue about when Inlet Terrace was paved, part of D Street was paved between 5th and 4th, and they painted the curve yellow, and for some reason, it's peeling. And we both walk our dogs in that area, and he was concerned about the peeling and getting on the grass and so on. So if you're listening, Neil, I spoke with Billy, and he said he'll take care of it. It needs to be scraped and all the peeling removed and repainted. I don't know why it's peeling so quickly, but we can always ask Jim Morris, our engineer, to take a look at that. Okay? And that's it for me.
I have one more thing too. I spoke to Billy about the toilets in the ladies' room here at Borough Hall that there's been many complaints about, and Billy's on it. So we're in the works, right, Bill? Just say yes.
Okay, now that we're through all that, let's go to the public session on the resolutions that are on the agenda.
If anyone has a comment or question about a resolution on the agenda, please step forward, state your name and address.
Mike Blasio, 9th Avenue. Commenting on ordinance, resolution 2025-08. Full disclosure, I sit on the planning board. I'm very familiar with the developments that have come up, Seaport redevelopment plans.
Sorry, Mike, are you talking about the ordinance?
Ordinance, yes.
That'll be later, comment on later. This is just resolutions.
Oh, you're right, I'm the one.
Anyone with questions on the resolutions? Okay,
Okay, can I have a motion to close the public session?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the resolutions as listed on the consent agenda?
Motion?
Second.
Councilman Donovan?
Yes.
Councilman Kinney?
Yes.
Mayor Buckafusco?
Yes.
Councilman Rondero?
Yes.
Councilman Levis?
Yes.
And then we have resolution 2025-74. This is a resolution permitting special events. Do we have a motion to offer this resolution for adoption?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Councilman Donovan?
Yes.
Councilman Kinney?
Yes.
Mayor Buckafusco?
Yes.
Councilman Rondero?
Yes.
Councilman Levis?
I'm recusing myself.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're on to ordinances. This is ordinance 2025-7, second reading and public hearing. This is an ordinance amending chapter 19 traffic, setting restricted parking on the west side of Main Street between 11th and 12th Avenue during certain hours. It's open for public comment if anyone would like to speak on the ordinance. Okay. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-7.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Councilwoman Donovan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinney?
Yes.
Mayor Buckafusco?
Yes.
Councilman Rondero?
Yes.
Councilman Levis?
Yes.
And next is ordinance 2025-8, second reading and public hearing. This is an ordinance approving and adopting an amendment to the amended redevelopment plan for the Seaport redevelopment area. This is open for public comment.
So you guys all know, I'm Mike Blasio, 379. I've been following this since April of '24, when we had our first hearing on this and what was going on with the DJ action that we filed. And just so much of this is not adding up to me. First of all, multiple times I've heard from our planners, our lawyers, the council, that no affordable housing would be in any of these three developments if we did nothing, and we were subject to these builder remedy lawsuits. I've also heard multiple times that we didn't have any affordable housing plan, no resolution, no ordinance. But that doesn't sit well with me, because I sit on the planning board, I come in front of the zoning board. We never heard any development proposals for any of these developments in the Seaport redevelopment. It's Seaport redevelopment, they're supposed to develop here. They're supposed to follow our ordinances, they're supposed to build, this is, you know, what the town looks for here. But hearing that we didn't have any affordable housing didn't make sense to me, because we never heard from them. We didn't know what was gonna go there. So we never actually talked to them. And I feel like that's where we got into the situation. I also found an ordinance 2019-25, which was dedicated to affordable housing. And it did speak to fees and buyouts and 10%. So I don't know why they weren't held to that, and why we just made a new ordinance in '23 without referencing the 2019-25 ordinance. I've heard a couple times that we didn't have an ordinance that existed, but it did. So what happened to this ordinance would be my first question.
If I can give you the summary, and we have our redevelopment council here, you can break in any time. I think as far as you refer to speaking to affordable housing, it didn't work that way. Our borough was under an obligation to prepare an affordable housing plan as of 2015. That plan was never done. Okay, so things just kept going on, and that ordinance was passed in 2019, but I think we had heard at previous meetings that that ordinance really could not take effect until we had an affordable housing plan. I think that was, I don't know if Francis, you think that was correct. That's why no funds ever went into the affordable housing fund until, what was it, February or March of 2023. So the key thing was the borough needed to have an approved affordable housing plan. So without that, you know, that ordinance was null and void.
So why didn't we do a plan? Instead of following the lawsuit, why didn't we bring these developers in, say, hey, we know you want to develop here, we know you're in process of purchasing these properties, we knew Sacramento owned 8th Avenue, we know that's in the redevelopment zone. Why didn't we talk with them and say, here's our affordable housing plan, you have to meet our ordinances, you have to meet our parking, you have to meet our heights, and we need affordable housing. These could have gotten, this all could have happened, but instead, within 60 days of you coming into office, you file a lawsuit. So I don't know the thought process in 60 days that it ever even went with the developers. That was, it just doesn't sit well with me. I'm looking for more.
If I can explain it to you, I'll see if I can clear it up a little bit. The process was, we didn't only have to meet with the developers, we also had to meet with this group called Fair Share Housing. And they have been deemed by the Supreme Court of New Jersey to be the entity that basically advocates for affordable housing. So we would have been remiss if we had just had gone to the developers and said, oh, let's make a deal. They would have wanted to become part of that deal, because it's in their interest to get as many affordable housing units as they could. Having said that, once we had already known that there were 4 developments willing to come into the town, but we would have been subject to these builder remedy suits, and also a suit from Fair Share Housing had we not included them. So we really had no choice but to file a declaratory judgment action. Now it sounds like it is a lawsuit, but unfortunately that was the way that the courts and the state said that you need to, in order to institute a plan, you had to file this action. In other words, there's no other way that we could have gotten our redevelopment plan unless we filed a declaratory judgment action. Okay, and all that was saying, okay, we're interested in complying with the Constitution, the constitutional mandate that we have a plan, and this is how we do it. And at that point, then the builders came in, and that's when fair share housing came in. And that's the process that every town needs to follow when they want to do an affordable housing plan and meet the third round requirements.
Okay, the builder's remedy portion of that we were so afraid of, we referenced Brielle a lot. There was an attorney that gave us a presentation in April.
Right.
I referenced Brielle, referenced Bayonne a lot, and that they lost these builder's remedy lawsuits. But in Brielle, there was actually an article just last week about the process they went through and the developments that are coming up. And those lawsuits, from what I can see, didn't even start, or they weren't even discussed until after those developers came to their boards and the boards rejected them, probably, and maybe, I don't know if it was wrongfully or whatever. But again, it just seems like we were afraid, or we started something way too soon, and we lost big time. This is bad for the town. They're holding to none of our ordinances, and it was just a big miss. That's all I can see as a resident, as someone that has worked with developers before. It just was a huge miss, because what they're proposing now, I don't know if this was negotiated or not, but these are rough. I mean, they're holding to almost none of our ordinances, and the parking is terrible. I mean, 1.3 spaces per unit. Anybody that lives, has a spouse, lives in a one-bedroom unit, you have 2 cars. Where are these cars going? And we can't get these developers to work on our roads. We can't get these developers, we have no rights to get them to pay for their site improvements. Route 35 is a disaster. How is the town gonna handle that?
Well, I'd be willing to meet with you at any time to review all of this from the beginning to where we are now. So, I mean, if you would like to do that, just let me
I'd love
know, and I'll, I can make the time to do that.
I'll send you an email.
And provide you with all that information,
No
so
problem.
you'll understand it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Good evening. Adam Fiel of Sills, Cummins & Gross. We represent Klein's Fish Market, the adjacent property owner of the development proposed in sub-area B. Ollie Klein here wants to say a few words, and then I would like to continue about our comments on the redevelopment plan.
I'm sorry, what was your last name?
Fiella, F-A-I-E-L-L-A.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ollie Klein, Klein's Fish Market, 708 River. I'm kind of like Joe Biden, I have to have my notes here so I don't miss anything. This is, I want to first be clear that we're not opposed to redevelopment. Over the course of the last 30 years, I personally have worked with numerous proposed and completed projects. None of them did anything to improve the overall parking situation in Belmar. And that's my biggest objection. There are currently, as the last gentleman just spoke of, 3 major projects that have been settled through lawsuits. The 8th and, the Route 35 between 8th and 10th Avenue, I believe that's called the Russo project. The Sackman project at the corner of 8th and Main Street. The Mark Bilt project between 6th and River, adjacent to my property and across the street from my property. And also another plan that apparently wasn't involved in the lawsuit, but it's a development on 6th and Main. These plans add almost 400 apartments and condos to the borough. And as the last gentleman just said, it's between 1 and 1.3 parking spaces per unit. And as he said, most people today have 2 cars per unit, plus they have visitors. The amount of parking provided is less than 500 spaces, and it's going to be a minimum of 800 cars. All day, every day, all year long. Every business in the north end of town from 11th Avenue is going to be affected. from 11th to the bridge is gonna be affected by this parking. There's gonna be 300 cars looking for parking daily, year-round. Existing businesses will go out of business. You're gonna have a lot of empty stores, and this affects everyone, because there was no thinking or plan in advance. In my particular area, this plan calls for eliminating the 17 parking spaces on the street closest to my property. These parking spaces were permitted after the 2016 revisions to the Seaport redevelopment plan, which eliminated 11 other parking spaces on 6th and on the south side of River. So now there's gonna be no street parking on River and no street parking on 6th. So I got a two block area around my business with no street parking. So that's no street parking west of Main Street. And to be quite honest, it's unacceptable. What is your plan to make up for the loss of these parking spaces? I haven't seen anything from the town. I haven't heard anything. I've been involved in most of the projects in the Seaport redevelopment since it was first mentioned to me in 1989. And I've heard nothing from this mayor or council. So I would like to know what you plan on doing. And then also, so I guess we don't know, because I'm not hearing anything back. Each developer for the past 30 years has been required to contribute to a parking fund for Belmar. I don't know how much money's in the fund, if the fund still exists, but I do know that some of those funds were used to purchase the Belmar Elks on 7th Avenue, right out here in the back. Even though that's still not fully into the parking lot. But these developers apparently, no one asked them to contribute. No one thought to negotiate before the lawsuit was concluded, which is a huge mistake on the part of Belmar. They should be required to contribute to the parking fund. We've been promised a parking garage on the site of the Belmar lot, right here in the rear of the building we're in. Since 1990, I've been promised that. That's 35 years. And since these projects are going to be built anyway, from what I'm told, there's no reason that the borough can't take advantage of the situation now if you do something, but it seems that we're doing nothing. We can turn this situation into a huge opportunity and finally create a major parking environment for Belmar. If we work with each of these developers on a pilot program, that's a payment in lieu of taxes, that can target a portion of the project's taxes, property taxes, to pay for the construction of the parking garage for at least 200 to 250 cars. I've been involved in a couple of other projects with the old Belmar business partnership and the thing that preceded that, I forget the name of it at this point, it was a long time ago. A couple of other projects in Belmar working on the parking garage. I'm only a phone call away, but I haven't heard from anyone. The municipal parking lot is basically the last area left in town that's within walking distance to the train station, the business district, St. Rose, and actually it's only 7 blocks to the beach. And many people on weekends for the past 10 years have been parking from the Belmar Arts Council around by me in the daytime on weekends to walk to the beach. so it's not impossible to walk to the beach. Working with a pilot program with these developers can help us get that parking garage and alleviate a huge mess that's gonna be in town and it's gonna affect all the businesses from 11th down to the river where I am. And I urge the mayor and council to please take this into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Klein.
Thank you. And so as Ali discussed, Klein doesn't object to the proposed use or the general parameters of the development, and in fact supports the additional residential and affordable housing. But our concern relates, as Ali was mentioning, to the particular design for sub-area B, the Markville project being proposed, specifically its impact on necessary public parking. As currently designed and without further safeguards in the redevelopment plan, we believe that development is not consistent with the master plan, the goals of the redevelopment plan, or sound planning. Our client is concerned that without any changes, this development could potentially threaten the viability of its business. And as I'm sure you're all aware, Klein's has been a staple in Belmar for almost 100 years, the fourth generation family-owned business. Over the years, Ali described how the amount of on-street parking in the area has been reduced despite the immense need for parking. Approximately, it looks like, I'm going to use some numbers, but I apologize because I'm basing it off, eyeballing it off of concept plans without any specific numbers written. But it looks like about 36 street parking spaces are being removed by this development, and the concept plan appears to indicate about 17 street parking spaces being added, so about half of the ones being removed. So first and foremost, we request confirmation in the redevelopment plan that these 17 spaces or so will be open to the public and not reserved for residents of the development due to the demand for public parking. While most of the spaces being removed and added are within the property lines of the private property being developed, the property line appears to go through the spaces, so part of it is public land. It's not clear, is the borough donating that land to the developer? If so, then in return the borough should receive the right for the public to use the spaces, and if not, then part of the property is public property, and even more so that the public should have the right to continue to park in these same locations they're parking now. Our co-counsel stated at the planning board meeting on March 17th why we do not believe the proposed amendment relating to sub-area B is consistent with the master plan. Specifically, recommendation number 18 in section 3.1 of the master plan re-examination report references a parking deck to be built on a portion of the Seaport Plaza. And the redevelopment plan was amended in 2018, and the need for the parking deck was reiterated if the parking demand exceeds the capacity of the plaza surface parking and other municipal lots in the redevelopment area. We're likely at that point now, and we certainly believe we will be there after this development removes on-street parking spaces. The borough has an obligation to determine the capacity and demand of parking in the area if it is reducing on-street parking as part of this redevelopment plan amendment. Even if the borough does not currently have funds for the parking decks, it should require contributions to a fund for the future development of the parking deck, which, as Ali mentioned, has been done for many years. It's also noted as a possible requirement in the redevelopment plan as currently drafted. If the borough has collected funds from prior developers, it should be able to account for those funds, and either alternatively or in addition, as Ali mentioned, the borough can, especially if it's already planning on potentially entering into a financial agreement for a long-term tax exemption for these developments, the borough can designate a portion of those annual service charges that it receives, or also called pilot payments. 95% of the pilot payment dedicated towards improvements is kept by the borough, and it can designate it for any specific use. I've seen other municipalities who are concerned about impacts on schools for pilots for residential programs, or pilots for residential projects, where they designate a portion of the pilot payment for directly to the schools. You can do the same here for schools, for the parking deck, or however the borough sees fit. But we certainly think it should go towards, a portion should go towards solving this parking issue. It also seems as if the borough might be underutilizing parking spaces in the municipal lot here. Some spaces are rightfully reserved for police officers and city officials, but at night, there's less of a need for that. I know some spaces might have certain time limits, on when they're reserved, but we respectfully request that the borough looks into that a little bit more, see if some more spaces can reduce that reservation or the time limit for it. I think that could be a win-win where it's not being used by public officials to open it back up to the public. The recommendation number 18 in the master plan reexamination report that I referenced, it doesn't only include a reference to this parking deck. It does specifically mention it, but the entire recommendation relates to the consideration of circulation and parking issues in the redevelopment area. It notes that the prior master plan update recommended that the need for parking must be addressed in relation to the proposed commercial and residential development of the Seaport Village redevelopment plan. Clearly, the need for parking in this area has been a long-term concern, and the borough should not at this point ignore or abandon that concern. The borough can meet both its constitutional obligation to provide a reasonable opportunity for its fair share obligation, and also ensure adequate parking in the area. It shouldn't be a one or the other. There's a way to solve this both. The redevelopment plan itself also has specific goals that are mentioned, and the need for additional parking is stated specifically in those goals and objectives in section 1.3 of the redevelopment plan. And then other goals include making this area a family destination, extending tourism. This can't be done without adequate parking. The tourists aren't going to circle the block over and over again, and without sufficient parking, they're going to move to other areas rather than park and shop or eat in the vicinity. The description of the redevelopment area itself in section 2.1 states, the partial reliance on public parking combined with the natural attraction of a waterfront location requires restaurants and shops to be within a comfortable walking distance, preferably along the walking route between the parking and the waterfront to encourage impulse spending along the way. And then section 2.1.1 of the redevelopment plan goes on to emphasize public parking supplemented by on-site or off-site private parking is intended to satisfy the overall parking requirements for the land uses within the Seaport Village redevelopment area and to reduce the need for on-site parking. This has been an issue for many years. That was from the 2018 amendment. 2016 it was stated, and 2016 it was stated as already being an issue. Reducing parking while adding more residents, but having the parking requirement for the off-street, but reducing those on-street spaces in addition to that could be disastrous for the area. So reducing parking in the area also impacts the goals of land use and zoning enumerated in the municipal land use law. So I get this is a redevelopment project enacted under the local redevelopment and housing law, but I just want the borough to be aware, courts have said in multiple cases that the two statutes are interrelated and act in pari materia. They deal with the same topics and they're read together in conjunction. The municipal land use law has 15 enumerated purposes. Anybody who goes through a planning board meeting that sees variances, you'll know planners will discuss what goals of the municipal land use law are promoted as part of the positive criteria. You always hear promotion of the general welfare. One of those goals is goal number H. It's to promote the free flow of traffic. That is so important for this state that it's specifically listed as a purpose of land use and zoning in the entire state. And obviously reducing the amount of on-street parking without contemplating alternative solutions is antithetical to this purpose. And that's not to say that Kleins opposes any inclusionary residential development at this site. Besides requiring on-street parking to be built to be open to the public, and either or both of a contribution to a parking deck fund and the dedication for pilot or a portion of the pilot to the parking fund, we encourage the borough and the developer to look into these issues further in the design of the project. We're sensitive to the time, effort, and money spent to date. The borough has been going through with this declaratory judgment action for 2 years. The developer has been here for a very long time and has put together a very good plan, but still, we don't think this needs to be the end of the story. There has to be other tweaks, small or big, that can improve the project. We're aware the project design can and very well may change from the concept plan to the site plan stage. But right now, the proposed amendment to the redevelopment plan incorporates the concept plan to a degree I personally have never seen, where it says if any other requirements in the redevelopment plan conflict with the concept plan controls and supersedes the redevelopment plan because you don't want any variances or waivers. which is fair to a developer, but also we need to make sure that since it's just a concept plan, some of which has writing over where some of the spaces are and you can't see exactly what's going on, you need to make sure that redevelopment plan providing the zoning is adequate. So we encourage the redeveloper to look into the location, for example, some things just looking at the plan, maybe mechanical and loading areas in the garage could be moved, maybe street trees, there can be 1 or 2 reduced or moved, so possibly additional on-street parking can fit. We personally are not opposed to if the building is a story higher and when the units are pushed in, so that way there can be more street parking, or if there's fewer 2-bedroom units, it can reduce the amount of off-street parking that's needed, but also reduce the amount of on-street parking being removed. I know our client has written a letter to the borough. There was also an issue about the trash and recycling area currently located near the pumping station along Railroad Avenue. That's proposed to be eliminated. We think that could cause health and safety issues because it doesn't look like there's an alternative location. I know that this is kind of more of a site plan issue. I just want it to be clear in the redevelopment plan that they need to adequately account for trash and recycling. I hope it doesn't come off this way, but we really are not trying to be obstructive. We want to get to yes with this development. We do believe this has the potential to be a benefit to the area, but only if it is done in the right way. We encourage the borough to revise the redevelopment plan amendment to address our concerns. We understand the borough has certain deadlines required in the settlement of its declaratory judgment action, but we do believe that adopting a flawed redevelopment plan amendment quickly is worse than slightly delaying the adoption to improve the redevelopment plan standards and ultimately improve the proposed development to reduce the detriment on the public and the surrounding area. Finally, just one more thing I want to state for the record. If the borough chooses to move forward and adopt the proposed redevelopment plan amendment, we just encourage that the borough makes it clear that there's a provision for these sub-areas being severable. We don't want a challenge to one sub-area to hold up all of the development in this redevelopment plan amendment. We really do hope that the borough takes our concerns seriously, addresses these concerns adequately, and so for that, we thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments. I do just want to say one thing, and these are my own personal comments. I sympathize with the parking issue 100%, and I wish I was back here in 2016 when, it might have been easier to resolve the issue back then than it is now. We've discussed parking garages very generally, and I've been told by engineering that it costs $35,000 for one spot in a parking garage. So if you're looking at a 250 space parking garage, you're looking at $8.75 million to build a parking garage of that size. Even 100 spots would be 1.5 million. But I haven't, I think the answer to Belmar's problem with parking may very well be some kind of a parking facility. I don't know where, I don't know when, I don't know, how we would afford it, but I think that's probably the best thing moving forward to try to figure out a way, if we can do that. Obviously, we need land and we need the money in order to do that, but I think, I would like to look into that, and I agree with you, I would like also to look in some of the parking area that we have around here that's probably not utilized, 100% to what it could be, to offer more public parking. So, that's always been in the back of my mind to just generally look at parking throughout the town and see if there's any way that we can improve it to either provide more spots or take the property and do something else or reconfigure the parking. But it's definitely on our radar. I just don't know that much is going to be able to be done through the redevelopment process. And I'm sure all of your comments have been noted by our attorney and planner so that they can advise us as to how we move forward with this. Any other?
Can I ask a question? It was my understanding that during this process and the way it was done, that the borough couldn't make parking or streets part of what the developers had to do. Is that wrong?
No, like they couldn't.
Fran Madden, Scotland and Belmar Service Redevelopment Council. So good evening. So if you could just elaborate on your question, what do you mean you couldn't make parking, what kind of?
Well, my understanding was that we couldn't make a condition of, or part of their final plan, we couldn't say you have to do some of these utilities, you have to repave roads, that was not.
You cannot impose cost-generating features on a redevelopment project that includes affordable housing. So yes, they can be responsible for the cost of the utilities and the parking that serves their project, but you can't enforce other conditions like off-street parking or off-site improvements. That would be not permitted. That could have been part of a negotiation, but as you know, the negotiations really focused on density and height on-site, not so much negotiating off-site improvements.
I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So could the borough at some point during the negotiations included something like parking off-site or contributing to a parking fund?
That could have been part of any, I mean, you have the ability to negotiate anything, but you're not obligated, they're not obligated to provide that. Like there's a statutory prohibition on the borough saying, you're doing this project and now you have to do these other improvements that are what are determined to be cost generative. So not tied to the cost of their own project, but other improvements that they would not benefit from. I mean, as part of negotiations, you can ask for, in general, you can negotiate a lot of terms, but the negotiations for these projects, as you know, were very tight. They were very heavily negotiated. There were lots of issues regarding density and height. That was the main focus, the impact on Main Street. So we were focused on parking in connection with the projects themselves.
While I have a microphone on, I'd like to just say for the record, I'm with you, Mayor, and I'm with the clients here that we do need to focus on parking. And the council and Levis will tell you that when we have Harbor Commission meetings, that is always a constant refrain, is that need for more parking. The cost for that type of garage is alarming, but I'm wondering, as part of Public Works Committee or whatever it will be to do is to look into every single possible source of funding to kind of tangible outcomes here.
Well, what I have heard, unfortunately, is that parking does not really get really many grants because they want to dissuade people from using their cars because of the number of cars. That's why we're considered a transit village and all that. So it's not likely that we're going to be able to find any grants that will fund parking of any kind. So it's something that, we probably would have to do ourselves somehow and see, if there's a way that we can do it. I have a few ideas, but, we'll see as the weeks go on what we can do.
I would agree, though. I think that we absolutely have to figure out our parking situation because it's just going to get worse before it gets better. That said, April, do we have a parking fund? And is there any money in it?
That would be a question for the CFO.
Could we use like the parking utility that, from the meters and everything towards build, like that, some of that funding go towards building a parking garage or whatever, like non-Ocean Avenue parking would be?
I don't know directly. I would assume yes. I just don't know how much of that is really, that might take, we don't want it to take 10 years to be able to do a parking garage.
Of course.
We'd rather do it like yesterday. But I think, it's definitely something we should put our heads together and try to come up with a solution. Any other comments? Okay.
Barry Lubin, 15th Avenue. Short speech. It was brought up a while back about what is the population of town. In 1980, it was 67, 71, and it has dropped since then. Estimate in 2023 was 58, 61. That's 1,000 people less. In my career as a business owner, retail business owner. I've been to many municipal, not here, presentations. I have been to every presentation here with you guys. My point is very simple. The people that own or want to own these properties have a right to build. Our right, your right, is to limit that building. We are required by the state to put in the affordable housing. I understand all that. But if we don't add this housing, some is taxable, some is pilot. From what I understand, there is a net gain each year from the agreements in place. The planning board will have say-so in some of, not in units, but in what the buildings look like and that sort of thing. But as a business owner, former business owner, now that I'm retired, that additional population is actually, from many presentations I've been to, good for town. Maybe not for the parking, but for the businesses on Main Street to thrive, not just survive. We need additional people. We are, what do you call it, a transit town. Not everybody's gonna have a car. They're going to commute. They're gonna use the train, a fair share of it. So I'm just trying to say that having been to every presentation that you guys have done up here, other than the parking and other than, oh, it's just gonna change the town, progress is, that's what this is. We're controlling it. We're not getting a 21-story building like somebody was threatening. So in what we are required to do by the state of New Jersey, we're making, lemons and lemonade, whatever you want to say. I know a lot of people don't agree with doing the DJ? Yeah. But from what I understand, what I have read about other towns across the state, doing it was the only thing because it had been ignored for so long. So again, the decline in population, this, from what I remember, the numbers, will not even bring it back up to that top population. It will improve, bring in new housing. So let's look at it as positive instead of all negative and all blaming.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay.
Eugene Creamer, 4th Avenue. Like Mr. Klein said, my biggest problems here are with the sub-area B. I did review the Exhibit A that was done by the planner and Exhibit B, which were comments from the planning board attorney. One thing I want to say, Mr. Klein skillfully avoided the last part. River Road is on the west side of the railroad. River Avenue is on the east side. Now, in the planner's report, the street name was wrong. It's River Avenue. And River Avenue is a non-contiguous street, but it runs all the way from the railroad down to the Belmar Fishing Club. And it's been River Avenue for all that time. that has to be corrected. The other thing I'm trying to figure out is sub-area B includes block 57, lot 4. Is there any evidence that that lot has been designated for redevelopment? As I did take a look at the 2016 expanded redevelopment area plan, which started the town not having its condemnation powers. That particular property, I can find no evidence that neither the planning board or the borough council had designated that as a property that was in need of redevelopment.
What are the boundaries of that lot? What street is that on?
That's River Avenue.
River Avenue right here?
Yes, yes. River Avenue runs from the railroad all the way around the back of the building, down by the, actually, I guess it would be the old Pied Piper property, if you remember that.
And it goes all the way down to
all the way
Inlet
down.
Terrace. It's the other side of Inlet Terrace, River Avenue also, right?
Right, and all the way down to where Mr. Merkler is building his new condominiums.
Right.
That frontage there is River Avenue. It makes it hard for the pizza delivery to figure out where they should deliver the pies. But that has to be corrected. I checked that with NJDEP, with Monmouth County, and also the borough tax map. Actually, on all of this, I would much prefer if references to property were done on using the Belmar tax map. Okay, that has to be corrected. It's just plain old wrong.
If that'll be corrected, if it needs to be corrected, it'll be corrected.
Okay. Let's see what else I had here. Actually, I had a question or two about the formalized ordinance. Now, the preface here, all the whereas, go down 3 if you would. I guess you'll call that whereas number 3. The Borough Council adopted an ordinance which designated the area known as Parcel 20 of the rehabilitation area. Where is that Parcel 20? Where do we find that?
You know, and it's funny you said that because about 5 years ago, I sat on my porch and I figured out what parcel 20 was. So you have to give me a minute to look through my files here. But, you know, it struck me at that time that why didn't they just use the lot and block numbers of all these things?
Right.
Because I had to go through and find out, like, what's parcel 20, what's parcel something else. I might actually have it, but you really have to go through and look at the original plan that was done. But give me a second, I might actually have it.
Okay, I could find parcel 1 through 19, but I couldn't find parcel 20.
Let me see.
But I'm not sure it makes that much difference. The reason I'm saying that is parcel 20, the rehabilitation area, and collectively with the original redevelopment area, the original Seaport redevelopment area, as an area in need of real rehabilitation pursuant to section 14 of the redevelopment law. Why is that in here, in as much as what we're talking about are areas within the redevelopment area.
Those recitations are put in every amendment to the, if you look back, you'll see the same paragraphs that said over and over and over again, because they're all essentially modifying the original ordinance. I'm correct, right? That is basically what's going on.
Oh, Mike's over there. So yes, Mayor, you're correct. There's a procedural history that's included in all of the resolutions and ordinances, all the legislation that would be in connection with this project. And as far as a rehabilitation area, part of the properties that are included in this overall redevelopment plan were designated as rehabilitation areas, and some were designated as redevelopment areas. So there are two different categories within the redevelopment law, and not all of the parcels within the Seaport redevelopment plan have been designated as redevelopment areas. Some are rehabilitation areas, none of which are impacted by this amendment this evening. All of the properties that are impacted by this amendment have been designated as redevelopment areas.
So it serves no purpose here.
It's part of the procedural history to explain how all of this came about, how the redevelopment area first came to be, how it was expanded. It goes through the history of the redevelopment area itself.
For your information, in the aftermath of Sandy, the entire borough of Belmar, from its municipal boundaries, the entire borough was designated as an area in need of rehabilitation. At that time, the only thing the borough did with it was tax abatements in order to spark rebuilding in the town after the hurricane. But it's almost meaningless to start divvying out whatever is rehabilitation. The entire town is rehabilitation. In fact, I'm unaware of any method of removing that designation. Of course, the town ceased its tax abatement, but it's my understanding that being in place, the borough could offer tax abatements if they wanted to spark plug development at any time, just by simple resolution. And so the entire borough is an area of rehabilitation. I want to bring up, I guess it would be, where is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the bottom one on the first page. Whereas on July 20th, 2016, the Borough Council adopted a resolution designating the property currently known as, and it lists all kinds of blocks and lots as being the expanded redevelopment area. I cannot find block 57, lot 4 on that list, which is part of that sub-area B.
That could have been, and like the mayor said, there's a long history of ordinances that do identify what the parcels are. So that block could have been included in one of those parcels, 1 through 6, 7 through 9. So it might have been part of the original area versus the expanded redevelopment area. I would have to track through the procedural history to find that parcel.
Okay. Actually, lot 57, lot 4, on that 2016 map, and I believe that was prepared by Mazer. That has the area listed for rehabilitation, not redevelopment. Now, we're modifying redevelopment areas here, but I haven't heard any mention about modifying rehabilitation areas.
I can't speak to that because I want to find the actual designating resolution for that parcel.
So we don't know.
I would need to track the legislation, which I will do.
Thank you.
I don't have that information right in front of me.
I guess the one other thing I wanted to say, this declaratory judgment, isn't it somewhat irresponsible entering into that sort of thing without first performing a jurisdictional determination? In other words, we have to answer to a higher power here. On these three particular properties here with development of more than 25 residential units, each one is going to require an individual CAFRA permit, Coastal Area Facility Review Act. That's federal. I mean, I really don't care what the New Jersey judiciary does. Federal supremacy trumps anything the state of New Jersey does. And the CAFRA permit is a federal permit. So why are we even looking at plans when they have to be approved by the Department of Environmental Protection?
And they still do. These agreements do not circumvent any permit requirements that they're required to get through DEP. So if they need a CAFRA permit, these projects, the redevelopers are responsible for securing those permits. We're not bypassing any procedural requirements.
That's fine. But we already have one developer, the Russo developer. He already has a CAFRA permit and is currently applying for modifications to that permit. And by the way, this may be a great opportunity, in as much as the planning board was kind of like pigeonholed as how they could respond on things. Perhaps they should participate in the CAFRA review process and comment. And I encourage everybody to do that. One thing that's important in this town, you heard the mayor mention before, we're very much under the oversight of the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. Our beaches, our drinking water, our sewers, all the DEP has got oversight over all of that. Okay? That should come first in Belmar. Environmental considerations should come before this business of we're just going to build housing for a couple hundred people. It's strictly regulated. I encourage people to participate in it. And quite truthfully, I wouldn't look at any plan that's been presented here without it being approved by the Department of Environmental Protection, because they are the ones that actually set the design criteria.
I have a question, since I guess the question I have as Mr. Kramer speaking is, hypothetically, what if development cannot get a CAFRA permit based on what they've said they're going to do? What happens then in terms of our,
The developer will come back, hypothetically,
Yeah,
it's hard to
hypothetically.
speculate, but my assumption would be they would come back and we would be addressing the project and the issues that are preventing it from getting the CAFRA, and that it would be before council again, as far as addressing any modifications that are necessary to get the CAFRA.
So there's nothing, we're not circumventing CAFRA. In other words, it's just that they're putting the cart before the horse. I think that's what Mr. Kramer was trying to say. Well, why don't they get the CAFRA first and then I guess they just figure they're gonna, move ahead with their plans and assuming that they will get the CAFRA permit. But there's always the possibility that they might not in a hypothetical situation. And then we'd be back to the drawing board in
The
terms of.
regular course would be
Yeah.
that they would want an approved project before they were going
Before
to
they're
go
gonna
through
do
the
it,
CAFRA
right.
process, which
I
they
got you.
did not have.
Got it. Okay, so it's just, I see your point, but I also see their point. The developer's not gonna propose something to CAFRA unless they know the project has been approved first.
And the
And then
borough,
if CAFRA permit is not awarded, then they have to go back
yeah, and
and
as the
design
borough,
another project, which they hope will be approved.
as the borough has done in the past, the borough would likely object to any
Right.
CAFRA application for a project that it hasn't approved.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I'd like to move on, Mr. Chairman, is that, about everything?
I guess I just got it around because,
But if you have, any further questions, I'd be happy to sit with you and and try to answer some of these other questions about these equal redevelopment.
yeah, I'll ask a simple question. Why are we even looking at, why don't we, as far as fulfillment, I guess, there's some sort of true up here that the borough's pressure, I said, pressure, it's all about pressure, isn't it? For years, we've had development pressure from luxury housing, and now it's being twisted around, and now we have development pressure coming from affordable housing. But in any case, I don't think any of us here in town really want to look at any development without them having the CAFRA permit, without them having a plan actually approved by the DEP that says you have enough sewage capacity, you have enough circulation of traffic, you have enough water at your water plant to supply. This is what we actually should be looking at, not these artist renderings of concept plans. I mean, a lot of these things just turn into, architect pipe dream.
Well, I think, as we just said, though, the process here is the developers want to have their plans basically done and approved by the court and by Fair Share Housing and by us, and then they'll apply for the CAFRA permit. That's just the process.
Excuse me, Mayor, do we have a deadline date for?
We have a schedule now that, we have what is our court hearing date is in
June 27th.
June 27th, right? So,
And this is, I'm just wondering whether this potentially can be used as, be weaponized against us. Do we actually have a court date that we have to produce evidence or what we have here?
it's a court date that basically will put its, like a good housekeeping stamp of approval that everything is in order, all the parties agree, and, and this is going to move forward, again, subject to any of the permits that the developments need to get.
Why not, as far as drawings are concerned, why don't we just limit ourselves to actually Belmar tax maps with the block and lots identified, and the tabular information I had no problem with the planner. Use that just as an attachment. Would that fulfill whatever requirements are here? I mean, are they looking for this? Are they looking for conceptual plans?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole idea of the agreements are that the plans are going to be the plans. There's not going to be a change after everything is approved. In other words, it's not, if we're approving, a certain number of stories with a certain number of units, with a certain number of square footage and certain number of rooms and what have you, those are not subject to being changed once everything is approved. So those are definite plans.
Right.
Yeah.
They're definite up to the point that they'll need a CAFRA permit.
Exactly.
Well, what happened with Mediterranean was, they submitted a set of architectural plans, they got bounced back, into the ocean, way out there. And they had to come back with plans that were prepared by an engineering firm in Belmar, and they eventually did get an approved site plan.
But the onus is always on the developer. in other words, there's nothing that's detrimental to the borough by them having to go and modify their capital permit. If it takes them 6 months, a year, or whatever to get the capital permit, well, oh well. It's not something that we're, paying for or at some kind of loss for, so it's really, the burden is on the developer. If they can't meet the capital permits, well, then that's their problem. It's not our problem. So, you have to look at it from the borough's perspective. If it takes them 5 years to get approval in order to build something, well, it takes them 5 years. It's not something that we're really shouldn't be that concerned about. The onus is on them to do that. So.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Any other comments?
David Wolf, 6026. If the onus is on the developer for the CAFR, is the onus also on the developer for the council and the zoning board to prove their point?
I'm not, why don't you answer those questions? I don't understand the question.
I don't understand your question. Can you repeat your question?
There was a comment just made that for CAFRA, permit approval, the onus is on the developer. Is there any onus on the developer to prove their point when they come before the board and the zoning commission here to prove their point why they might need a variance for any issue?
Well, they're going, whatever permits are gonna be required from the borough, building permits or whatever, they're gonna have to go through that process. But as far as a variance in front of the zoning board, that is the purpose of the amendment to the redevelopment plan. The amendment to the redevelopment plan has been developed in consideration of the negotiated project. So when they go before the planning board, there shouldn't be a need for a variance because the redevelopment plan has been developed in consideration of their concept plans.
So the developer then isn't responsible for the influx and use of schools, utilities, resources, traffic. They're not responsible for anything except their project.
They're responsible to provide for the utilities for their project. There was an analysis done for each of the projects that's on the borough website addressing the number of school children that's expected to be generated from each site. And there was an economic analysis done comparing what these properties are currently generating by way of tax revenue and what they will cost us in consideration of municipal services. I don't have the reports in front of me, again, they're on the website, but in each case, the borough was going to make an increase in funds even with the increase in municipal services given the increase in tax revenue or pilot revenue given, depending on the project.
And as Mr. Klein stated, these 1.3 vehicles per unit, an estimate of 300 vehicles not having parking and circulating the town looking for something, where we're talking about maybe utilizing the municipal lot after hours. How's that proving or conceptually feasible and realistic?
That's something that the borough can take into consideration as far as a shared parking arrangement.
Obviously, there hasn't been a lot of consideration by the borough for development.
Well, I'm going to take issue with that because the issue you have to understand.
In response to the needs of the current residents, regardless of those residents which might come in these units. Thank you.
I was just going to say though that the balancing that had to take place with the developers was the balancing between the height of these buildings and the parking. we could have provided, they could have provided parking to 3 spots for every unit. But that 5-story building that's gonna be over here would have been an 8-story building, because you would have had 2 levels or 3 levels of parking. So the one that's gonna be on the corner of 8th and Main, instead of being 4 levels, that probably would have been 7 levels. Okay, so it was a balancing between what would you want? Do we want to see huge structures? Do we want Main Street to be like a cavern, like a New York City street where you go down and there's huge buildings on each side? Or do you want to, you know, amend the parking a little bit so that we can keep the heights down and keep the feel of the town the way it is? It's not an easy choice. There's no easy answer to this. And that's why it's called a compromise. That was the compromise.
I think,
Had I been here in 2016, you know, maybe by 2018, I would have looked at the master plan and said, oh gee, you know, we could have used the parking garage. But unfortunately, I'm sitting here in 2025 saying, we can't afford a parking garage. You know, so, you know, that's the difference. What we could have had and what we should have had is really irrelevant. It's just, you know, the whole idea is compromise, do what's best for the town, and I think we've all done a great job in trying to make things work as best we can.
sounds like in compromise, the town didn't get such a good deal and the developers possibly got a better deal that possibly the town was taken advantage of. In compromise, both parties should be happy. If you're happy with that and your residents still oppose some of the features, then maybe it wasn't a good compromise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike DeBlasio again. I just want to follow up on some of the comments I heard you say about the developers and their obligation for improvements. In a typical development agreement, if you're putting 300 units on Route 35, sewer, water, roads are going to be affected. Are you saying they're not obligated to improve anything outside of their development?
I just wanted to clarify, and I appreciate coming back up what Councilman Donovan had also asked. When you make agreements for off-site improvements, and I'm going to get to your specific question, when you make agreements for off-site improvements, that increases the cost of the project. And as a result of that, that impacts the density. So I didn't specifically state that earlier, but that's why when we were focusing on density, if you require something, you can negotiate an off-site improvement, like a parking deck or anything else, but that increases the cost of the project. The way the redeveloper recoups that cost is by increasing density, which increases height and additional traffic and all the other issues that people are concerned about. As far as the off-site improvements go, there will be a consideration. They will be responsible for their impact on the infrastructure. Now, whether that is that there's going to be increased traffic 2 blocks away and they're responsible for those improvements, I would say no, they're not going to be responsible for that. But they will be responsible, again, the standard is that they're responsible for the improving the utilities and providing the infrastructure to support their project.
Okay, is that done with their engineering or the borough's engineering?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Are they responsible to pay, again, as the developers coming to the town, when they're proposing these things and these improvements, they have to pay the township's engineers also to review and approve, if I'm correct?
There is a redeveloper's escrow that covers the borough costs, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Ollie Klein again. I just want to make another comment. You mentioned if you had been here in 2016 rather than 2019 or whatever it was you came here. It's been mentioned about the parking garage. It's in the 2003 Seaport redevelopment plan. Almost every town meeting, as we are here tonight, in the 1990s, it mentions the parking garage, and every time the Seaport redevelopment was mentioned, planning boards, workshop meetings, it's all there. anyone who's been involved in Belmar throughout the last 35 years, it's not a surprise. This was supposed to be built. Every administration has pushed it off because we're gonna leave it to the next guy. Well, you guys
We're the
are
next
in,
guy.
okay, by default. And it has to get done, or the business area is gonna be destroyed, and you're gonna have a lot of unhappy residents like this two previous guys mentioned here. So it needs to get done. And again, I'm gonna urge you to please consider it, and let's get a group of business people and residents together and work on finding a way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you for your perspective, and we'll do the best we can. Any other comments?
Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-8?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Councilman Donovan?
Yes.
Councilman Kinney?
Yes.
Mayor Buckfusco?
Yes.
Councilman Rondero?
Yes.
Councilman Levis?
Yes.
Okay, now we have the regular public session. If anyone would like to make a comment, please step forward, state your name and address.
I have a handout. Should I give you that first? If I may?
Sure. Why don't you state your name and everything first,
Okay.
and then we'll do that.
I'm a little shorter than the last one.
You got it?
I'm weaker too.
Just tilt it
Oh,
down.
oh,
There you go. All right.
I got a big voice anyway. My name's Edward Quigley. I go by Ed, and I live at 5521 Cottage Street in Richmond, Virginia. I grew up in New Jersey. My parents lived in Manasquan. Brothers, sisters live all around the area, cousins around the area. I'm here to speak about beach umbrella safety. So let me give you my handout.
Thanks.
And I have some extras. In 2015, July 7th, the oak shaft of a windblown beach umbrella impaled my left eye and breached my brain cavity. I died on the operating table, and it took 23 minutes and 7 cycles with the shock paddles to bring me back. After about a year of recuperation and reconstructive surgery, I decided that I had a mission to inform people of the danger of windblown beach umbrellas. I was on Inside Edition, and I set up a website called beachumbrellasafety.org. Because of my national recognition as having become an advocate, I was invited to participate in an ASTM, that's American Standards for Testing and Materials. They develop safety standards and all other kinds of standards. Along with that, I visited Congress, and a number of senators got together and wrote a letter to the Consumer Product Safety Commission. That was in 2021. And the Consumer Product Safety Commission assigned a team of engineers to work with the task group that I was assigned to in ASTM. They spent 2 years testing beach umbrellas on beaches and in wind tunnels and determined scientifically what's required for a beach umbrella to remain secure in the sand in winds up to 30 miles per hour. Literally thousands of people are injured each year by beach umbrellas. Not all are as serious as mine. There have been a number of deaths. One that I'm aware of in South Carolina. Just to give you an idea, a beach umbrella is a javelin with a sail attached. This beach umbrella, with an average wind measurement on this beach of 8 miles per hour, and some gusting, which was not measured, went through a woman's arm and her chest, and she died. I am here to ask that, well, let me give a little history. Prior to our efforts at ASTM and with the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the Consumer Product Safety Commission had a guidance which stated you took a beach umbrella, shoved it into the sand, rocked it back and forth, and tilted it into the wind. That was how you installed a beach umbrella. It said nothing about anchor devices or any other protection. In April of '24, the safety standard was published by ASTM, and in May it was adopted by the Consumer Product Safety Commission and incorporated by direct reference into their new guidance. So their new guidance is based on the science. What it says is that no beach umbrella is safe without an adequate anchored device. And so my ask for this council and the town of Belmar is that at your beach access points, you display a warning sign to make the public aware of the danger. This warning sign is a replica of the label that is required on newly manufactured umbrellas under the safety standard. It's to inform the user of umbrellas that there is a danger. It's somewhat graphic, but it's no more graphic than the one that is on your lawnmower that shows severed fingers and blood, or on power tools. You need the graphic to attract the attention of the user to the danger. Beach umbrella safety is prepared to provide 12 by 18-inch signs that can be put up at your beach access points and hopefully also on your lifeguard stands. Many people, as they go up and down the beach, pay a bit of attention to the lifeguard stands. Sometimes the water temperatures posted there, safety kinds of things. So that's my ask, is that the town consider placing these signs to inform the public of the danger.
Thank you. I think that's a tremendous
Great idea.
thing that we can add to our
And I have a
beach
question.
room.
What does the said anchor look like besides, like, I've seen like the twisty, you know, like
Yeah.
the corkscrew?
Well, yeah, I have a comment about that. The testing proved that the screw-type devices are not effective.
Oh.
And the reason is that the wind acts on the umbrella vibrates. What you wind up with is just the little bit of additional weight of sand in the screw itself. And that does, it's a bit more than just the shaft of an umbrella, but not enough. So one of the things that we did with the safety standard was be agnostic of the design of anchored devices. So there are anchored devices out there. Primarily, they use the weight of sand to establish the anchor for the umbrella. So some of them are in this bags, some of them are other devices that use sand.
So you would just fill a bag of sand and attach it somehow to your umbrella so that it doesn't like totally take off? Is that the idea?
Yes, and part of the safety standard, this is going in and out for some reason.
It's okay.
Part of the safety standard established testing methodology that manufacturers, distributors, retailers, even individuals could use to determine that an anchor is adequate. If it passes the test, one of two tests, then a compliance label can be affixed legally to the anchor device stating that it is safe for a certain umbrella size up to that 30-mile-per-hour wind.
So, I'm sorry, one more question. I just never have seen like anchor devices for sale. So like, are these, yeah?
Okay, if you go on Amazon and search for beach umbrella anchor and put F3681, that's the safety standard, along with that request, the ones that are in compliance with the standard will show.
And they're sort of compliant with all umbrellas or only only certain umbrellas, or?
They state, they state the square footage of the bottom plane of the canopy. So a standard beach umbrella that you might see from a rental company, the kind with the oak shaft, is 7.5 foot diameter. And so that's determines the square footage of that canopy.
So you can take an existing umbrella and make it safe by getting the anchor, appropriate size anchor
Absolutely.
for it. Okay.
Typically, the anchor devices are in the range of $40 to $60.
Okay, that's good to know, that's good to know.
I don't like to promote any individual product
I understand.
to maintain my
Right,
independence.
right,
Yeah.
right. But as long as it has the certification, the ASTM F3681-24, then we know that that's basically what we're looking for.
And we do expect a revision to come out this year for that safety standard, so you see -25 at some point.
Okay, thank you.
And just get back to me, let me know how many of these you need if you decide to go forward, and we will ship them where you ask.
You have
Yeah, the front page of the handout has my contact.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you very
So
much.
Great
This is
information.
close to my heart, as you can imagine.
Yes, thank you so much. Any other comments?
Claire Hainwright, on behalf of the Malcolm. I've been attending these meetings for close to 10 years now. It started out as something to do, okay? It's been very interesting over the 10 years. There's been two things that I have been up here and asked about, and asked about, and asked about. And it sounds like both of them, well, one is definitely done, a little bit left to do, but done enough. And the other is, you mentioned today, the bathroom, the kindergarten toilet in the bathroom.
Billy
okay?
saw it firsthand. Billy, I took him in there.
Okay? I mean, I first brought that up in 2019, okay? And it was dismissed because it was grandfathered in, no less. And the curbs, I was told it was the homeowner's responsibility, and our engineer told us no, it was the borough's responsibility, and the borough took care of it. So, thank you all very much.
Thank you. The only thing I'll say, Billy, is if, before you make any changes there, you have to talk to Jim Morris, because if you're gonna make changes and make it an official handicap bathroom, there are many other things that need to change in terms of the door, the sink, it's not just, okay, so check with Jim and he'll give you the specs as to what we need to do. Okay?
We got the process started, Claire.
Just
There
go
you
for
go.
the start with the toilet.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Yes?
Eugene Creamer, Fourth Avenue. Just got my new my latest water bill, and I like to conserve water, but there's no meter readings on the bill. It's only ink. You know,
Yeah, April says there's a chart that shows the meter
yeah,
readings.
that's not a meter reading.
No, they used to have them on there with the exact numbers. It started at this and went to that.
Right.
Because I have a spreadsheet that calculates it all out. But now it just gives, you use this many whatever, okay? There used to be, it went from 1,452 to 3,525, whatever. Those numbers used to be on the other bills.
Right. I don't know if that can be done. I mean,
I heard.
We'll have to check.
Oh, it absolutely can be done.
why would you need it done? I'm gonna ask you
How would
the
you,
question.
how would you know, Mayor, if you were going to exceed the 5,000 gallon allowance?
How are you gonna know that as you're using the water? You'd have to go look at your own meter, right?
Correct. Yeah. But
Can
why
you
is-
see your meter?
Why is it,
Can you don't have like an electronic thing on top of your
well,
meter?
I got a water meter in the basement,
And you can physically see the numbers on the meter? Okay.
Absolutely.
Kelly can do it.
All right, we'll look into it, see if we can do that. Thank you.
Used to, when it was on, when we got the mailing, with card stock, it had,
Right.
you know.
Well, if they have the difference, I'm sure somewhere in the formula is the starting number and the ending number.
No,
So, no, I mean, somewhere to get that difference, there has to be a calculation being done, and I'm sure that the beginning and end points are there, just have to be mentioned.
I believe that those numbers may actually be available if you pay online. But no, this,
I'm not paying online.
correct.
Mayor, the chart shows you usage instead of the actual reading.
Right, that's what he's saying. He would like to see the beginning number and the ending number, which has to be captured. It's just that we're not showing it on the bill.
And I did mention that
Take it.
last quarter at Borough Hall.
What's that?
I mentioned that at the last quarter when the bill came in, and they said that they could do.
I'll check the minutes to make sure we.
No, not wasn't here, it was right back there.
Okay, any other questions?
Paid the bill.
Comments, I should say.
Johanna Roper Robinson, 9th Avenue, been sitting a little too long, stiff now, but, I have a question, as far as the ordinance in regards to like when you, are doing your yard work and cutting down shrubs and things like that, isn't there an ordinance where you're supposed to put your shrubbery on, not in the street, but on the side, like the curb side of your property?
I don't remember the ordinance off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
I remember Tom Brennan always saying, don't put it in the curb, put it in between, in your planting strip, right? Like the grass in between your sidewalk and your curb. I remember Tom Brennan.
Yeah, because the curb, if it rains, then it's gonna get washed, it's gonna get washed down the block.
And not, well, part of that my concern is that, you know, that maybe we should do something, just like if we have, our recycling, maybe they can have bins going forward, that you put that you're keeping it out of the street and you're keeping it on the curbside. Because one thing that I've noticed recently is by it being in the curb, on the street, sometimes they don't come around for weeks to pick it up. So you're using.
It's once a month.
Once a month,
Yeah.
but it could be, I've seen it be for
Well,
weeks.
my pet peeve is,
Right.
it was just picked up, and now somebody will put it on the street like tomorrow, and it'll stay there for a whole month.
Right, and that creates a parking issue too,
Yes.
on the street.
That should create a ticket.
Yeah,
That's what it should
exactly,
create.
that's what I'm saying, well, maybe they can enforce it better.
Billy, can you remind everybody when the date of pickups is for brush?
Yeah, the brush pickup is the first Monday of every month, and it runs from April to October.
And people should
not be
also be reminded, there is a bin at the recycling center for
Correct.
brush. So if it's just brush, just don't let it sit in the curb, it's just, obviously branches and things like that you might not wanna lug in your car, you would put on the curb. But again, don't put it out there on the 10th of the month, and now we have to wait, 3 weeks before it gets picked up. I agree with you.
Yeah, and because I noticed, just recently, like more flooding, and I can't figure out if it's from the brush or if it's from some of the construction that's going on now. But there's flooding that I've never seen in my particular block that, so I'm not sure if it's from the new construction that we have directly across from me or not. But like it floods my whole driveway now, so, okay. All right, thank you.
All right. All right. Okay,
Can I have a motion to close the public session and adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. So no executive session because of George?